Awesome. So really at about the 6 month mark for my business, um, I was almost out of business. I mean, I literally was looking at my wife going, babe, this isn't going to work. Um, and that was tough because I was at that spot of telling my wife that, babe, we're going to lose our forever home. We're going to lose the farm. We're going to lose the cars. I had a second house on the property from my mother-in-law, and I was trying to figure out how the hell, so I put all this on me. And for 6 months of that journey, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor because by God, I was Donnie and gonna make it happen.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, all of you amazing, abundant leaders out there? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community, proving to you that you can, in fact, live a life of abundance and prosperity on your way to having more. And having more is an amazing thing to do. In fact, I feel it's your responsibility to have more if you're fully capable of doing so. And I believe you are, especially if you're listening to the conversations on this show. Now, as you've probably noticed, today's conversation goes a little bit long, so I'm just going to get right into it. I am just going to afford you the opportunity to be abundant in your life today by paying it forward and sharing Men of Abundance with everyone you come in contact with. Listen, these amazing conversations and this content is absolutely free to you, but don't underestimate its power. We are sharing some amazing information here with you to help you grow as a man of abundance in your life, in your family, faith, finances, and fitness. All we ask you to do is to share it with others in your circle so that they can benefit from the conversation as well. And make sure you hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player to ensure that you get notified when each and every episode is posted. Generally, Tuesday and Thursday is an interview conversation just like the one you're going to hear today. And then on Friday is Abundance and Prosperity Business Mastery, where I am sharing some business strategies with you that you can use that day in your business to move the needle in your business, in your profits, in your revenue, and set you apart from your competition. Now, let me introduce our featured guest today. Normally, I would read through his bio, and I do have that posted at menofabundance.com/269. So make sure you go there and check that out. There's also some cool links over there that he shared with us. But just to show you what a smart ass our featured guest is today, I have an intake form that most people would fill out and put their bio and put some, useful information that I can use to introduce them to you as the listener here on Men of Abundance. But here's what Donnie shared with me on my intake form. Well, of course, he shared his name, his email, his Skype, which I used to use Skype. I use a different platform now. And then I asked, what kind of mic do you use for the interview? He said a really bright blue one. Smart ass. And then, of course, on the intake form, I asked for their website bio page. And I'm going to share that, successchampspodcast.com and DonnieBoivin.com. Make sure you go check out those websites. Very good stuff over there. But then here's some other good smartassery from our featured guest today. I asked for a short bio written in third person. No more than 2 paragraphs. He puts absolute stud and rock star. Can't disagree with that whatsoever. And lastly, how did we get connected? Please name drop, person, or company. Our featured guest states, you suckered me into having you on my podcast. And while that is most likely true because that's just how I do things, it's still a smart-ass thing to say, and I would expect nothing less of our amazing featured guest today, success champion himself, Mr. Donnie Boivin. Donnie, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
Man, I'm excited to be here. Life is good. I tell everybody I'm 5'8" above the ground, so it's a good day, man. Thanks for having me on. How are you, Ben?
Oh man, I've been just freaking outstanding. Where are you at in the world?
Hanging out in Fort Worth. We're sitting on the farm today. Got a little crisp and chilly out here. Took care of all the goats and everything, but it's Texas, so it won't be cold long.
Yeah. Well, same here. I'm in Florida. 39, 38 degrees this morning when I was riding a bike with my kid to school this morning. A little bit nippy for us out here in Florida, man, but I dig it. I like the cold weather as long as I can walk back inside the warmth. You know what I'm saying? I'm not living in it.
Yeah, I was talking to some friends yesterday. They live up in Minnesota, and they're like, it's gonna be a light dusting, about 10 inches. I'm like, if 10 inches landed in Texas, we would be shut down for the next year.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, 2 inches, man. You're done.
Right.
Done. Absolutely. I was in El Paso many years ago when it actually snowed New Year's Eve.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
El Paso, Texas. It was pretty beautiful, man. So,
yeah.
I like to start out with an attitude of gratitude, Donnie. What do you have to be grateful for today, man?
Man, I'd be honest, a couple of things. One, the constant learning of doing the things that I don't want to do. I just put an article out on LinkedIn, and last night, literally, after a long day, put in a ton of hours at my company, I got home, was tired. You get to that point where you just want to put your feet up on a couch and don't do anything. And my wife comes up, she goes, "My tire's flat on my car." And I went, "Oh. It's 30 some odd degrees out, and now I got to go out, so do what you do. Life is all about doing the things that you're supposed to do even when you don't feel like doing them. And so I walked out, bundled up, and went and, got the tire fixed. And, there's an escapade where I had to go. My compressor died in the process, so I had to run to a gas station. And, but we got it all fixed and got it all taken care of. And it was funny. And this happens all the time when you do the things that you're supposed to do, even when you don't feel like it, is the whole time changing that tire, I didn't have the thought that I was tired. I was wore out. It was a long day. I was just getting the job done. And, I'm grateful for those type of experiences that, as simple as they are, they remind you on a daily basis that if you'll just take action and get to work, things happen and your world continues to move forward. So funny, because I hadn't really thought about that from a gratitude perspective. So it's a great way to start off, to realize that that's for today. I mean, I got tons of things to be, grateful for, but that was a great lesson from last night. Reminder again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you, Donnie, it's interesting that when I have these conversations, that the conversation really does relate to what I have going on in my life. And that's why I just love having these conversations with so many amazing guys like yourself. And what's going on in my life right now, January 29th, at the time of this recording, I just put out my first podcast. I just posted the first podcast this last week of 2019 because, I explained in the podcast. You guys can go back and listen to that episode later. But the bottom line is this. I'm extremely comfortable, man. Extremely comfortable. I haven't had to commute since June of last year. And it's so easy to sit back and take my kid to school, come home, lay on the couch, or take my wife out to a movie, or, just do a whole lot of nothing or whatever the hell I feel like doing all day, and not be productive in any other way other than just connecting, just having a good time with my family, But I felt myself getting really lazy. I'm talking physically. I'm talking, I got all this time on my hands. I'm not adding any value to anybody other than my immediate family. And to me personally, it just doesn't feel right. And in contrast to what you're saying, when I'm not doing something, then nothing's going to happen, Yeah. And I can see right now, I could literally do nothing for the rest of my life. And I mean, do nothing as far as I don't have to work for anybody. I don't have to work at all. I've set it up at this point. Finances are great and everything else. But being comfortable and free is the goal for so many people. But at the same time, when you get here, you realize that you really have to just keep adding value. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I 100% agree with you. It's interesting is I think a lot of people define success by the word freedom and whatever freedom means to them, whether it's a monetary state or whether it's a time state, of mind form. And it's interesting that most people, because they really don't know what they want in life, are aiming at something that is a philosophy or a theory that they think that they'll reach some sort of, state of mind when they get someplace. And that's why you have so many people that have those midlife crisis and everything else, because they get there and realize that that's not enough in their life. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I think partially that's the reason I had my, from what's the book, The E-Myth, I had my entrepreneur hiccup, and that's how I started my business. Is I got to that point though that I realized, I'd made everybody else wealthy. I'd lived other people's dreams, and I thought I could do this better on my own. And uh, you know, the crazy thing is everything I thought about before I launched my business was wrong. All my theories were wrong. 'Cause it's kind of like, people wanting to get to freedom because they think they get to that port in their life that they will be able to let their hair down or whatever else. Well, for me, I thought in starting my own business that the world would just embrace and open up and everything would explode. And what I didn't realize is, I'd spent my entire career, 20 years, being an employee. And then I had to switch over to be a business owner, and holy hell in a handbasket, switching that mindset from an employee to a business owner is a tremendous leap. And it took me getting punched in the face several times by life to slowly begin to figure that out and how to make something of my company and get it moving forward. And there's still days I battle with an employee mindset. You get to that point where you're like, we were talking about, you want to put your feet up, you want to relax, you want to kick back, and a lot of your mental game is surrounded by, you're supposed to work an 8 to 5, not a 4 to 2 in the morning.
Yeah, or whatever fits your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild that once you get to that place where you thought, this is where I needed to be, that it's a very short-sighted vision. And, you have to start thinking more along the lines of, legacy is the wrong word, but more along the lines of, what am I doing to leave the place better than I found it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's living proof that success is not a destination. It's really, you find success in progress. Because once you reach a destination, I mean, look at our astronauts. A lot of people don't pay attention to astronauts after their career once they've made it to space and, God forbid, walked on the moon, or God willing. They just go nuts. They literally go crazy because once you've been to space, what's next?
Yeah.
How do you top that type of thing? So you really have to put that into perspective. One other really deep thing that I've been, really focusing on or paying attention to is I've still got boys in the house. My oldest is out and he's doing his thing. He's actually just found out he's going to be moving out to Korea here in August time frame. And I've got my 19-year-old and I got a 9-year-old at home. And what I'm doing is influencing them.
Yeah.
So my 9-year-old especially, he's looking at, hey, Dad makes money by taking me to school and going and, sitting in his office and reading emails all day or hanging out with Mom,
I want that job.
Yeah, that's my point exactly. That's my point exactly. I want that job. And it's like, no, guys, I worked to get to this point. I got to make sure that they understand that.
Yeah, what's interesting is one of my mentors came up to me one day and he said, Donnie, do you realize how much your message, your podcast, your story has impacted people? And I said, well, I got an idea of how many listeners, listen to the show and everything else. He goes, well, that's not my point. And I said, okay, what's your point? He goes, well, how many, the people that have reached out to you and the people that have said thank you or sent you an email. Have you ever thought about the people who haven't reached out? And I said, well, to be honest, not in particularly, they're top of mind. He goes, what you got to remember is there's more power in what you're doing for the people that don't have the courage to reach out and say thank you than the people you're radically impacting. He said, and his point is every action you take, somebody's watching, right? Somebody is following along because as podcasters, as speakers, as coaches, whatever, we're in a sense carving a trail that others are following. And so the actions we take and what we do is the path somebody else is going to walk. And, I'm in learning that and really thinking and wrapping my head around that, it's really a force for me to remind myself it's still to keep moving forward. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad, but the one thing that I constantly tell myself is, this is that point in the story where everybody talks about that they held on long enough that it finally
Mm,
worked, and
yeah.
that's kind of my mantra, if you will, is somebody's watching, whether it's my nieces growing up on their journey, whether it's the listeners of the show, the followers in the groups, the clients, somebody's watching, and I chose the path to be that guide on a journey and making them the heroes of the story. So I have to continue to walk that path of the guide and remember that my actions, somebody else is watching, and I've got to live by those standards and keep moving forward. And it it could, I think, in some instances, put a lot of pressure on people. But for me, it's helping me to evolve. It's helping me to move forward become a better guy, become a better mentor, a better leader, better speaker. It's really becoming a cool driving force for me.
Yeah, I get that. And, you and I both are in a couple of the same Facebook groups and stuff like that. And that's how we got connected, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah,
And, I kind of, not kind of, I definitely struggle with this whole idea of sharing my lifestyle all over Facebook, all over social media, partly because I don't know if it's because she's Hispanic, but my wife is Hispanic and, she likes to be a little bit more private and I respect that. But also because one is like showing off, and I don't, some people take it that way. Others are like, man, I just want to live that way. I just want to do that, and I don't know how to do that, and they feel inferior in the whole bit. And there's just all this stuff that goes back and forth about, I see certain people posting every little thing that they do on, in their life, everything from what they eat, how they work out, how they live, and the whole bit, and then what their business is or whatever. But what are your thoughts on that?
And here's a problem. I think they're idiots, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, nobody cares what your successes are, and your day to day. Here's what's working for me is I'm sharing the screw ups. I'm sharing the trials. I'm trying to share. I mean, I share the wins, right? Don't get me wrong. If I get on a podcast interview, if I get a speaking engagement, I share those wins. I don't care if somebody knows what the hell I had for breakfast, by any means. But I know my truth is simply if I'm willing to share, and look, I don't put pictures of my wife out there. I mean, she's very private as well. She's my favorite ginger in the whole world. But there's no reason to that. I mean, I take people and they can see my farm every once in a while, and I'll take them out and see the goats and all that. But for me, is people learn more by understanding what struggles I went through or am going through than what I'm accomplishing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys in this day and age that, success is the Lamborghinis and the cars and the houses and it's tragic because they're getting a lot of the younger generation believing that that's what success is, and anybody who's gotten to any sort of monetary success will tell you that it's empty, right? It's if you don't have a purpose to go along with it. And unfortunately, in a lot of the groups we share, there's a couple of guys that are constantly, this is my dream, this is my blah, this is my workout regimen, this and look at me type things, and there's no value because they're not teaching the things that people need to go. I mean, people got to hear that this is not a simple thing, and you're gonna screw up. But most people don't want to get that vulnerable. They don't want to share the things that they're going through. And it's like me simply sharing the tire story. There's a lesson in doing the things you're supposed to be doing. I could have said, hey, I make so much money that I called a tow truck, they came out, and fixed it up, and I was able to sit my butt on the couch the entire time. I could have said that, but it's not the truth. But in some circles, that would be more of the story, or they wouldn't have told about, because God forbid they got a flat tire, So it's really about more. It's better said. It's documenting, not bragging. It's documenting what's going on in your life. And I've had some cool wins on my story. You've had some cool wins in your story, but it's more about, if they're going to live vicariously through my actions and what I'm doing, then I want to show them the raw side. I want to show them, what my struggles are as a business owner. And I love telling everybody that I struggle with the employee mindset to business owner mindset. I don't want to be the guy who has all the answers. I don't want to be the guru that people are like, oh, Donnie's got all it figured out, because I don't. I'm not even close. I'm still, working this ride. So I would tell everybody, quit trying to convince people you're more than you are, and just be you. Because I know for me, like on my sales journey, I started off early in my career thinking that I had to be the slick back hair, the nice clothes, the fancy style, and really try and project somebody that I was not. And it wasn't till, years later that I realized that I was being somebody that I wasn't. And therefore, although I'd found success, it was fleeting because I couldn't keep it, So, I mean, that's really my thought is do it from a place of teaching, a place of genuineness, a place of real, a place of, don't put yourself on a mountain. I guess that's the point.
Yeah. There are some guys out there that are really trying, and I see it. They're trying to do the right thing, and they are sharing the wins and the losses and all that kind of stuff. It just comes off, it's all about who you're going to attract into your circle, and who you're trying to attract as a customer or client or whatever it is that you do, man. But I dig the guys that do, show the wins and the losses equally. It just gets kind of icky after a while. There's just so much of that. It's like, oh my goodness, man. Like, for instance, with myself, I could sit here and tell you that I'm completely 100% free, and I'm, I don't have a boss anymore and all this kind of stuff. But then if I, what you don't know, and if I don't share this, because I've already shared this with my circles, the guys that follow me in my groups and stuff like that, is what really happened is I was teleworking for DOD, Department of Defense, and I had the work that I had done for many years, and they terminated that position. Now, I knew it was going to be going away pretty soon, but I've been teleworking. I've been working from home doing that job. I lost $4,200 a month in that deal. $4,200 a month out of my pocket. That's my play money.
Right.
Now, but what that did for me is allowed me the opportunity to do more of what I enjoy doing, which is helping businesses generate more revenue and get more clients and convert more clients. That's what I enjoy doing, and that's what I was kind of doing on the side. Now it just allows me the opportunity to replace that income over the next couple of months and do it on my own terms in a way that I want to do. And most people don't hear that whole story. They're like, damn, he's just making all this money. No, it's not about that. And it's not, living a lifestyle like this isn't about all the money. It's about everything, having your finances straight, having your insurance in place, and all this other kind of stuff where you are comfortable. You can sleep well at night. So
yeah. It's interesting. I would challenge you to share that story out there, not from the perspective of this is what I'm going through, but this is what I created because of it. This is the journey I went on, because there's a lot of value. I mean, how many people in this world go through a similar situation where they've lost their job from whatever, they eliminated a position or corporate downsize, like I was in my youth. I say corporate downsize. My butt was fired, but they called it a corporate downsize, because they were being politically correct. But it's those type of things that there's so many lessons in there that people could get from that moment, because maybe they're going through it. Mm-hmm. And I've found that when I share those type of stories of, here's the lesson, here's what I learned out of this, here's what I got out of this, that's when people seem to more engage with it, because it's relatable. It's you saying, hey, you're just like me, you're human, and sharing those stories. And then, you ain't gonna do it like some of these guys are doing it, where they're sharing it every 5 seconds. but it is therapeutic and helpful to others to walk them through your journey in a sincere, genuine manner.
Yeah, yeah, and I do, and that's a very good point, and it's one of those things that, like I said, my wife's very private when it comes to our finances and stuff like that. But that's why I created my own private, Men of
Hmm.
Abundance group and Abundance and Prosperity Mastery, because those are the guys that I can share that information with, and we have kind of a pact. What's said in the group stays in the group type of thing. And if it gets out, oh well, it gets out. But I do it for that reason, because I want them to realize that, look, I got stuff figured out, but not everything's figured out, and stuff does happen. So you just have to. That's why I'm so big on having a side hustle with so many people for many reasons, not just that.
Right.
But you play sports, you can get injured, your identity's gone. You're not making money doing that anymore, or that can relate to anything as a mechanic. It doesn't matter what your industry is. Something can happen to where you can no longer do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And unfortunately, people put too much value on what they do instead of who they are, and their livelihood and their lifestyle becomes a thing and not a person. Whether
Hmm.
it's like you said, the sports, the garage, whatever their job is. And in the day and age we live in, people spend more time at their work or their job or their company than they do anywhere else, unless they're you sitting on their couch doing nothing. No, I'm kidding.
I
you know,
resemble that remark.
but I mean, but that's the truth. So somewhere along the way, they get lost in, this is me versus who they are, and that's why there's so much information in the world about working on yourself to keep yourself in the game properly, so you can be detached. And that's the same token why it's smart to I mean, I don't like the word hustle just because I feel like somebody's getting screwed in that
Yeah, I
conversation.
don't like it either. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but I love the whole phrase and the whole idea behind a side business. I mean, even in my company, I've got three entities that are all under one umbrella because I'm scared to have all eggs in one
Hmm.
basket. You know,
Yeah, because we've been there.
yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be interesting to see when we get this next market downturn, what happens. Because I'm afraid that there's been so many gurus on the marketplace and so many uh, bad advice out there. I mean, people I don't think intentionally are giving bad advice. I just think they don't know any better.
Hmm.
I hope that's the truth. I really hope that's the truth. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens because a lot of your younger generations that are into the game now. I mean, they haven't been through a downturn. They haven't been
Hmm.
punched in the face, and so it's going to be an interesting next couple of years to see what happens with all of this.
No, it's a very good point as well. And one of the things that I always think about when you're saying stuff like that about all the advice that's out there, so many people are so quick to follow the big names. I mean, the Gary
Hmm.
Vaynerchuks and all the other folks out there, and that's cool. I think they put out some pretty good content. And a lot of it is mindset. If you really pay attention to it, guys, a lot of it, 80% of it is mindset. The rest is strategy. That's true in anything that you're going to do, whether it's business, it doesn't matter. But I did a post a long time ago. It was a live Facebook live that posted to YouTube about stop following Gary Vaynerchuk today. And what I meant by that is follow him who he was back when he was doing YouTube videos for his dad's
Hmm.
wine business, or when he was going around to yard sales and buying, used toys and stuff like that and selling them on eBay. Follow him from then, because that's where you are today. You can't follow Gary Vaynerchuk today being who you are today, where you're at in your business, unless you're currently making billions of dollars and you just want to make more. I mean, that's not who you want to follow. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Here's my only struggle with Gary, and I love a lot of Gary V's topics. I love his energy's fine with me, and of course, God knows I love his mouth because he cusses worse than I do, and so that makes me not look so bad. And I've been proud, Wally. I've been
You've
clean
been
all the way
pretty
through your
good, man.
show.
What's up with
I'm
that?
not. So it was one of those things out of respect. I didn't know if you allowed cussing, so I was trying to be nice. But the problem with Gary's message is, and I love your thoughts that following back in the
Yeah, and I'm
day.
just using him as one example, but yeah, go
Absolutely,
on.
absolutely. But that message of the grind it out is a quick way to the grave, I
Right.
think.
No, 100%.
Because these kids and the people that are following and listening to him are, well, you've got to put in 18 hours a day to be successful. And look, I don't care where you've been in your life, but you could stack up 7, 8, 18-hour days back to back. And if you're in the military, you've done it several times. Your body at some point says, dude, slow the hell down. Because you're about to get punched in the face health wise, and it's not healthy. There's no family balance in the mix, and if you're in the entrepreneur business owner game, you already struggle with that enough as is, trying to find time to spend time with your family and your kids and your loved ones and everything else. Man, if you get into that over the top grind mentality, something's got to give. Something's going to break. And, I have to remind myself because, once you start running your business, there's a mind shift that happens and you don't stop thinking about the company. You don't stop thinking about, your next deals coming through, your next growth strategies, and all it just doesn't turn off unless you force yourself into a position to turn it off. And make it a point to do that. So I mean that's really, but I do love the philosophy of following how he started, and that mentality of just figuring it out, get it done, just be cautious, very particularly of those you got to work 100 hours, and look at the message a lot of these gurus are putting out there. If they're standing in front of Lamborghinis and they're standing in front of these big houses and they're showing off, I would really challenge whether their message is valid. And not that they're lying, but what are they really trying to teach you? Or are they just trying to sell you? And I have a lot more respect for the guy or gal that is, doing a, selfie video camera, just sharing their journey and story of what they're going through versus the studio prop over the top stuff trying to sell you something.
Yeah, absolutely. And in regard to the whole working 18-hour days and all that kind of stuff, think about it, guys. Look at any farmer. Look at corporate guys. Look at and just about any other vocation out there. They work, 9, 10, 12-hour, 13-hour, 18-hour days, whatever. And look at their lifestyle. Look at doctors.
Yeah.
I was in the military for 25 years, and I was in the medical field and worked around doctors and in the military in general. None of them guys are multi. Now there are a couple. I've seen a couple LESs from a couple of providers that would blow your freaking mind, but they worked a lot of hours. Their families enjoyed a great lifestyle. They themselves, however, did not. And it's, my point is working long hours, working hard is not the answer, man. You got to be smart about what you're doing. And like, for instance, with myself at this point, I will never work with more one-on-one. I've got some group stuff, but I will never work more than one-on-one for more than 5 people at any given time, because that's taxing my time. And I live a lifestyle that I truly enjoy, and I don't make millions of dollars. I go to Disney whenever I want. We're going to Disney this weekend, and Epcot and Universal and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to actually, I take that back. Next weekend, I'm driving to Georgia just to watch my son's kids while they're going on a couples retreat. I can do stuff like that, and I want to keep doing stuff like that. I don't need $1 million to do that. And it drives me nuts when people say, well, Wally, I want, how can I earn $1 billion? One, I don't know, because I'm not earning $1 billion, but I'll give you an idea. You have no idea the problems that a billionaire has. You want the lifestyle that they portray, but you don't want the problems that they have. I really don't think you do.
No, and I would add on to that, is what people often forget, that $100,000 is a lot of money.
It's a lot. Especially, you know what? Especially when you got everything else straight, when you got your insurance taken care of, when you don't have, $80,000 credit card debt and all this other kind of stuff. That's when $100,000 isn't that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's about understanding why you're living on this earth. I think, I mean, I don't pretend to know all the ups and downs of life and all of that by any stretch of the imagination, but I love telling my wife the simple fact that, babe, we've got our forever home. We know where we're going to live for the rest of our life. We know this lifestyle, so whatever success may come our way, we just build upon our foundation here, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a just a cool thought process and feeling. And I don't want the hassles of a millionaire, right? I don't want the hassles of the billionaire and all that, only because of the stress and everything that comes with that. That's why I love the book The Millionaire Next Door.
Love that book.
He
just wrote another one. I just saw it in the bookstore the other day. There's a new addition to it. Yeah, I didn't pick it up, but I noticed it was there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I mean, but that's it. I mean, I want the guy that's under the radar. Mm-hmm. I say that I love the celebrity spotlight. I love being on stages and and all that. Don't get me wrong. But financially, I want to be more the millionaire next door. It's under the radar type thing. But I don't know. Life's too short to not figure out how to enjoy it and get balance. And I mean, I think a lot of people struggle with it. I mean, I struggle with it, mm-hmm. With my business and I'm almost a year and a half into business now for myself, and learning daily, learning what works and what doesn't work. Fun part. Here's the thing. I'm embracing that thought process for me. That's the struggle with an employee mindset. Mm-hmm. Is I tell people I'm a business owner, not an entrepreneur, and the difference being is the entrepreneur enjoys the creation, right? They enjoy the building, they enjoy the model. I'm learning to embrace that, but it doesn't come naturally for me because I always had a job. I showed up, I kicked a little. Am I allowed to cuss while I'm being good?
Keep it real.
All right. So, but you show up, you do what you're freaking supposed to do. You kick a little ass, and you figure things out. Well, now running a business, I show up, I kick a little ass, I figure things out, but then I got to go do it again and do it again and do it again, which is it's in learning to embrace that. Okay, I show up, I do those things. Now what's the process? Okay, how do I recreate that process? Now, can I bring somebody else in to help me maneuver that, create that, move it forward? So it comes into, what am I building? What am I creating? So I'm learning very, very, very quickly through a lot of trial and error and, going through coaches and everything else. But some people really enjoy the creation side of things. I'm learning to have the patience to go through it, to become it, because I'm so in that spotlight where I'm like, I should already be there, right? I should already be, sitting on the big stages, sitting next to the guys whose podcasts are sitting next to mine in some of the top spots in the world. And I have to constantly say, hey, you're going through it. That's the game. That's the process. Go through it and embrace that. But that's not a skill set that's come natural for me.
It's really cool that you said that too, because guys, especially those of you out there who are, wanting to be entrepreneurs, think you're an entrepreneur, business owner. One of the biggest, this is a huge issue with entrepreneurs and business owners is, one, we have that mentality that if it's going to be done right, I got to get it done. And I know you don't edit your own shows. You got people out there that do stuff for you. Coaches are extremely
Yep.
important. And people think about, well, why am I going to pay somebody to show me how to do something in strategies or whatever the case may be? I mean, think about this, guys. Professionals have been going to and hiring coaches of sorts for years. Doctors go to their conferences every year. Attorneys go to their conferences every year because they're constantly learning. They have to constantly learn. You have to do the same thing. And you have to realize you can't do it all. If you do, you just have a job. That's
Yeah.
what you have, because it's always going to be you. But Donnie, we're going to transition just a little bit here, because
Sure.
I like to get into this kick in the gut moment, brother, because, we talked about some ups and downs, and we were talking about this. So let's really get into that up and down, that kick in the gut that you had. And then we're going to transition into basically, what did you take away from that? How
Yeah.
did it transition your life, if it did at all?
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is awesome. So really at about the 6-month mark for my business, I was almost out of business. I mean, I literally was looking at my wife going, babe, this isn't going to work. And that was tough, because I was at that spot of telling my wife that, babe, we're going to lose our forever home. We're going to lose the farm. We're going to lose the cars. I had a second house on the property from my mother-in-law, and I was trying to figure out how the hell, so I put all this on me. And for 6 months of that journey, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor, because by God, I was Donnie and gonna make it happen. And thank God, I threw a Hail Mary pass, and I had one last speaking engagement. And I had watched a video or a TV show called I don't know, I don't remember the name of it, but it was an a cappella singing show. My wife's is a huge singer and whatnot, but we were watching this a cappella show, and at the end of this show, this college group, a cappella college group, did this song called "Take Me to Church," and I forget who sings it. I'm not a big music guy. And this kid, the smallest guy in their entire troop, sang so hard that at the end of the song, he literally fell to his knees from pure exhaustion. And even the Boys to Men guy that was one of the 3 judges or whatever looked at him and said, you just left it all on the stage. And that just hit me so hard. So if I went in this last speaking engagement, I said, I'm just going to leave it all. I mean, if this is the last one I ever do, that I'm giving it everything I got. And I did. And at the end of that thing, I was exhausted. I was wore out. I put everything I had into it. And the coolest thing happened is a guy in the audience, came up to me and said, man, I loved your passion. I loved your story. I just loved everything that you did. I'd like you to come tell your story on my podcast. And there's a whole lot of mechanics that happened after that. But I mean, the short and skinny of it is that moment's what saved my business. Because once I found podcasting, I understood that for the 6 months, all I had done, and you said it a second ago, was create a job for myself, right? I hadn't built a business. And podcasting taught me processes. It taught me procedures. It taught me, deliverables and how to work with vendors. And, it forced me to get back into coaches, and it forced me to understand what type of coach I need to work with and those type of things. But one of my most viral posts I have out there is simply a picture of me with one quote on the picture, and it said I had to fail miserably to finally discover who I am, and dude, that's it. I had to go down to almost completely losing everything before I was able to get my ego out of the way and go, all right, you can't do this by yourself. You've got to start evolving in this whole scenario. And it's been a wild ride since, man.
Yeah, and then obviously that turned into Donnie's Success Champions, which I was honored to be a guest. I think it was episode 116, right?
I was probably right around there.
Yeah. And that was just an amazing experience to be on your show, because it's just the way you control the conversation, and I mean, it's just amazing. I was so honored to be on the show. But how did that all evolve? Where did that come from?
I love telling a story. So when I realized that I was going to go into podcasting. So after that speech, my first podcast that I went on was that guy's, and from his show that I went on as a guest, I picked up a new client. So I do a lot of sales coaching and mentoring, and I do a lot of helping. Surprisingly, when you work with a lot of men, I actually work with a lot of women. And most of the women I work with are absolute badasses. They're going through life, and they're at that point where they know that there's just so much more, but they've hit some sort of block. But that's where I find myself working with. Well, I picked up this gal as a new client of mine, and I went, holy crap, I can go on podcast and people are going to reach out and become a client. Hold my beer and watch this.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
so I was on like 67 shows in 30 days, Wally.
Wow.
I literally, man, if I found out you had a podcast, I was calling you, I was emailing you, and I put together a whole process to get on these shows. Well, I happened to go on one show, and I'll never say the guy's name, but it was bad. And what I mean by bad was before the show, he sent me a list of 20 questions, which I thought actually was cool. Nobody had ever, sent me questions like prepared before. And I thought, oh, that's different. Okay, that's fun. Let's try that. And so I show up, and I know what question he's going to ask, and I always prefer the questions that are off the cuff, and because you get more real answers than some sort of canned prepared thing. And we start off, and he goes, question 1, and I answer question 1. All right, cool. He goes, question 2. And I'm like, okay, so I answer question 2. And he goes, question 3. And about that time, I realized, holy crap, this dude's going to keep going. So me being me, I'm like, all right, tell me your story. What did you into? How did you start this thing? And he goes, question 4.
Whoa, really? Dude.
And he was just, and we went through 20 questions. I mean, the episode's out there. You can go find it yourself. But
Yeah. No thanks.
yeah. And he went through, and I really, the thought I had, somewhere around question 10, 11 was, holy crap, if this dude can even have a minor success, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I launched the show. And what a lot of people don't know is Donnie Success Champions, which has seen all the success, is my second podcast. So I started my first podcast, and you're going to see a theme between how I started my business and how I started my podcast. But I started my first podcast, which was called the Run Like Hell podcast. I went and got a coach, had a studio, and I went and recorded, and I shut it down after 7 episodes. And it had nothing to do with a coach or studio or anything. It had everything to do with me. The show had no vision, it had no direction. I didn't know who my avatar was. And so I was just showing up and ad-libbing, and it had no substance. I mean, I had a ton of people that said, hey, I listened to the show, and there was some good things on it. But it wasn't delivering enough value to people. So I said, if I'm going to figure this out, then I'm going to do it myself. So through a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of podcast groups and everything else, I taught myself how to podcast. And then I got about, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 10 episodes into, where I did the work of editing my show and all the ancillaries that go along with it. And I'm like, all right, this is not for me. And this is where I learned to start working with vendors. I picked up a great friend of mine now, Joe Phelan, who's an Army veteran. And Joe's been editing my show for 160 some odd episodes now, and does amazing work. I mean, Joe and I hardly ever talk. And we have a whole system down to where I don't have to touch it, and he edits and it goes out, commercials get put in. It's a beautiful thing. But it's those type of things that taught me how to do business. And man, since I found the podcast, international speaking gigs, keynotes across the U.S., lots of coaching clients. I mean, it's been a fun ride that keeps me humble and taught me a whole lot in the same token.
Man, that's very cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that story and the whole bit. I always love hearing how the whole thing comes together. What are some good news stories from basically what you've been doing as a business coach or anything else coming from the podcast? You've shared a couple, but what's a good news story?
So the interesting thing is, look, a lot of business owners do. You're always thinking about your business, and you're just always churning. At least that's my truth. Okay. And one night, I'm in the midst of my podcast. I don't know, it hit top 200 in the business category. I don't know if I'd fully hit top 200 overall, and I sometimes pop in there, but um, and I'm 3:30 in the morning, and I know the exact time because I got up and looked at the clock. But I sprung awake, and I went, "Holy crap, that's the answer!" And what I realized is every time I do a video, or excuse me, an interview on the podcast, that I'm sitting across from somebody for an hour, getting their story, getting their message, getting everything, and I realize that's all content. So I put together a team of videographers, graphic designers, and copywriters, and we put together some packages that now everybody who comes on the show, we offer, to turn that episode into a bunch of social content for them. And we thought it was going to be a cool thing to offer our guest. Well, the funny thing was is some of the people, our guests, took us up on that, which is awesome and it was great. But then they also told some of their friends about this, and next thing you know, we're doing this for small businesses, and we did a spa, we did some coaching, and it started growing. And so we started a whole second company under our umbrella that's all about content development. So we sit with small businesses and interview them, not for the podcast, but to capture that content and turn it into micro videos, blog posts, social graphics and everything else. But it came because I was always thinking about the business. And it's wild that when you're doing the right things and you're working on your business and you're growing, the universe sometimes just opens up and says hello and puts something in front of you. And so now that's evolved into a couple of other really, really cool places. And I've got a free an offer for your guest, if you're okay with that, Wally. I don't want to presume anything, but it's came from knowing that my business needed another revenue stream, and because all my business at that time was coming from coaching. I had a sponsor on my podcast, but that was covering cost. It wasn't really a profit center. So I needed a new revenue stream. And by constantly thinking, what's something that I can add to my company, this opened up a whole nother avenue to allow me to diversify. So now I've got the content company. We're launching a podcast course. We're launching a content development course. Of course, I do public speaking and coaching. So right now I've got three main, income streams coming into the business. But when everything's fully functional, we'll have 5 different revenue streams coming into the business. And that's when I think I'll finally embrace that maybe I am an entrepreneur.
I dig it, man. I remember you telling me that when I was on your show too, about putting all that content together. And listen to this, guys. We always hear about repurposing content. I mean, you turn your videos into ebooks or full-on books or, any number of things. It's just all this stuff, but you're doing it for yourself, right?
Yep.
Donnie's taken an opportunity here to do it for his guests and make a revenue stream off of that. No, by the way, if you haven't paid attention, he's employing other people. Other people are getting into the project as well, and they're benefiting from the whole bit. And this is just why I'm a business and life strategist. And there are just so many ways when you sit down and look at what it is you're doing right now today, that somehow you can, if anything, just share your information and start sharing your information about what you know. Right now you have what I refer to as the curse of knowledge. You know things that other people don't know and want to know and are willing to pay for. Consider that. Yep. So, Donnie, we're going to transition again here. We're going to get into the pay it forward round, brother. Are you ready to do that?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Question 1. No, I'm just kidding.
What's funny about that is as many times as I've had the pleasure of telling that story on podcasts, that always comes back to it. There you go. They get that pause and they're like, question 5.
Yeah. I love it. It's crazy, man. All right. So share 1 to 3 actionable steps that men of abundance can take today.
Number 1, get punched in the face by life. And here's what I mean. is if you are not finding struggles, if you are not finding, if you're not screwing up, if you're not finding yourself in a place of angst because something's not going well, then you're not going big enough. Hands down, go back to how I started this with the tire story. If you're not finding yourself in a situation where you've got to choose to do the thing you need to do versus not, then you're not going big enough. Take action. The second thing is quit setting goals. And I drive people nuts with this. I don't think goals work. I think goals absolutely demotivate people. And here's why: is most people look at goal setting and they say, I want to be a millionaire tomorrow, or some random thing. They set goals they don't already believe that they can do. Start setting milestones. And here's what I mean. You need to have a vision of where you're going and where you want to get to. And then once you have that, now you need incremental growth. And I'm not talking about breaking it down backwards and figuring out all the micro steps and all that. What I'm talking about is, and I'll take it to a sales perspective because that's where I come from. Let's say, you average $10,000 a month as a sales guy, which is a, good, honest sales position. If you average $10,000 a month, so you did $120,000 last year, don't turn around and say, I'm going to do $1 million the following year, because you're not going to even be able to fathom or wrap your head around it. This whole idea of 10xing is just retarded to me. So instead, go from 10,000 and go, okay, can we get to 11? Let's see if we can get to 11 for 2 months in a row. Can we get to 12? Cool. Now that we're at 12, let's do that a couple months in a row, and then keep moving forward. And then the third thing that I'll absolutely tell you is go big and loud. And what I mean by big and loud is, in this day and age, if you don't have a social strategy in your business, if you are not actively social selling in whatever you're doing, you're losing. I grew up in a world of cold calls and kicking doors in, and that was sales. Now 85% of my business comes from online and social conversations. And a quick tactical way that you can do to start a social selling strategy is start every day with 10 reach outs. Every day, I guarantee if you go to your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook profile, whatever, you have contacts. And I guarantee that you don't know who most of those contacts are, especially on LinkedIn, because everybody accepts everybody. Start going every morning and doing 10 reach outs, and start, saying, hey, we're connected on LinkedIn. I don't know a whole lot about your story. Would you be up for a 30-minute Zoom call just to network and get to know each other? I promise you, if you start doing that, you're going to start bringing people so much value. And don't go into it to sell them anything. Go into it to really understand them and get to know them. And you're going to be amazed at how much that impacts your business. Not only from a networking, but from a personal development standpoint, because you're now positioning yourself to help others. So that was rapid fire. Hope you caught them all, Wally.
No, that's great, man. And guys, you can go back and rewind this and re-listen to that again, because that's gold right there. Listen, guys, I don't get a chance to do it all the time, but I do send a video welcome to everybody that connects with me on Facebook through Messenger. I'll send them just a really short, because I use the actual app, so you can only do I think it's 30 seconds or something like this, maybe a minute. It's not that long, but it's really quick just to introduce myself. And then on LinkedIn, I do something similar. But what most people do is they follow, again, the gurus, or they just follow somebody who's saying do Facebook ads, and you go out there and you spend $1 million on Facebook ads and get absolutely nothing back, and you're surprised. Because nobody knows who the hell you are, and everybody else is out there doing. The people they do know is marketing on Facebook, and they're not buying from them either. So why would they buy from you and don't know who you are? You gotta build that relationship, man. No matter what comes up in our future, when it comes down to selling yourself and selling your business, it always breaks down to relationships. So you have to build that relationship. And how you do that, there's just so many strategies out there to do it, man. Donnie just shared a couple with you right there. And between the two of us, I'm sure we've got at least 200 different strategies to really build a relationship with your target audience.
Yeah, so, can I give you one more?
Yeah, please do. Absolutely.
And I should have thrown this in the mix, but here's the thing. In this day and age, you should start a podcast, and here's why. And last year there was 200,000 podcasts launched. Okay, to put that in perspective, is there was 4 million books written last year. So if you put that out, podcasting is still in its infancy. Here's the thing: podcasting has become my number one networking tool on the face of the earth. And I'm going to use financial advisors just because I love to pick on them. But imagine you're a financial advisor and you're going out and you're networking and everything else, and people are sloughing you off or giving you a cold shoulder because you walk up and you say, I'm a financial advisor. So you're finding every other angle to introduce yourself. Here's what I want you to do. Go start a fly fishing podcast or whatever you geek out on. It doesn't have to be fly fishing, but whatever you geek out on. Now imagine this. You have a podcast about fly fishing, okay? Now, when you're out networking, instead of saying I'm a financial advisor, you lead with, I'm a podcaster. I happen to podcast about fly fishing. I'm actually actively looking to interview people who also geek out on fly fishing. You know what happens? And then people in the crowd go, the CEO of XYZ company, I know he's a huge, fly fisher guy. And you're like, oh, all right. So now you reach out to the CEO of this major corporation who happens to be in fly fishing, and you go, okay, I'd love to have you come on my show and just talk about why you're so much into fly fishing. You then, because 90% of the time they're going to agree. And then next thing you know, you've got an hour-long intimate conversation with somebody, and you're both geeking out over the same thing, whatever you geek out about. And now you're able to follow up at a later time and say, man, I really enjoyed that interview. Thanks for so much to do that. Care to have a cup of coffee and we can talk a little bit business about what you do and what I do. And now you've created a bond and a relationship. They're going to take that second call. So, I mean, just think about whatever it is that you geek out on, whatever it is that you're into, and start a podcast on it. I did this at an event, and a gentleman who sold HR consulting walked up to me and he goes, all right, I sell HR consulting. Nobody gives a damn about HR consulting. I'm like, you're absolutely right. He goes, so what the hell do I start a podcast about? And I said, well, what'd you geek out on as a kid? And he goes, oh, that's easy. It's motorcycles. I raced them. I love building them. I'm like, do you feel that energy you have right now? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you started a podcast about motorcycles? And, now you're going after, and he goes, you just effing blew my mind. And I don't know if he ever did. I never followed up to see if he did, but that's it. I mean, in this day and age, it's so inexpensive, with technology and everything else to get into podcasting. Frickin' launch a show and make it whatever you geek out about.
Yeah, and there are so many different crazy shows out there. I could list so many. One I personally know is Whitetail Rendezvous with Bruce Hutchin, who loves hunting whitetail. And now he's got sponsors from different, like Cabela's and all these different, products around hunting whitetail, hunting in general, and he just gets to have these amazing conversations with, just like you said, man. Great strategy, man. I absolutely love that one. So I'm going to ask a couple more questions here.
Sure.
What are the rituals that make the biggest impact in your life, Donnie?
Regiment. I have such a morning routine, and I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that talk about morning routines. I don't know if having a morning routine works for everybody, but it works for me. So I have the farm, so of course I have the discipline of having to take care of the animals and very routine. But my day, because I run a daily podcast, gets so strict in the mornings in the process I go through. That's a repeatable session 7 days a week. And I've built it so it's just like clockwork. And there's a lot of moving parts, but it includes journaling. It includes, 5 minutes of just thought to myself, but it includes all my social posts, all of my 10 reach outs, because even though I told you I'll do 10 reach outs, I do 10 reach outs every day. And it's such a regimen. And what I found for me is when I was first running my business, I was doing stuff in the business, not on the business. By putting the regimen in, I was starting to take care of the things that made me money first. And then I was able to go do all the other stuff that I needed to do for my business, which was huge. The other one is, for me, is doing the things that scare the hell out of me. I've learned that if something sounds intimidating, scary, frightful, whatever, and it's a business S type thing, that 9 out of 10 times it's a universe telling me to go that direction. So now when some sort of fear pops up, I'm looking at it and going, okay, how do I tackle this? And it's not about tackling and conquering that fear. It's not that. It's about going through the process and evolving as you go through that process and going for it. And then the last thing is absolutely journaling. Getting the thoughts out of your damn head and start writing them down. And it's amazing how when you are able to transition those thoughts from your mind to paper, that in some senses it's freedom. In some senses it's helping you evolve on your journey.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. They all know I'm a huge fan of journaling. It gets stuff out of your head, makes space for more stuff because I don't have a whole lot of space up there to begin with, storing capacity anyway. But I got to get it down, and then it just gets more and more creative, man. What are you reading or listening to that you would recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
Yeah, well, funny thing is I have an ebook that's called "That's Not How You Journal, Jackass,"
Oh, I love
and it's on my website, DonnieBoivin.com. It's free. But I wrote that to walk through the process of how I finally figured out journaling.
Cool.
So right now I'm heavily involved in a ton of podcasts. I'm so ingrained in that community that there's a couple of episodes. There's a group of gals that I'm enjoying, but the book that I'm getting ready to start as soon as I get through this regimen of podcast is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Brother, you have to do it on audio. I just finished it, and I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, so I went on a podcast on Saturday, and these gals were talking about it, and I like David Goggins. I mean, I don't think I could hang out with David Goggins. I don't think him and I would get along just because our egos are so big, but I love his message. And, they were just talking about this book, and, one of the things that one of the gals said is, man, when you read that book, you realize your excuses are the stupidest things on the face of the earth because of his story and his journey, these things going through. So I'm really looking forward to diving into that. But the last book I read was E-Myth again, only because I'm in a position of putting all the processes and things back into my business. But hell, I usually have 2 or 3 books going at a time. It's just audio is changing the game a lot for me right now, and I'm consuming a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the David Goggins because I'm sure I've talked about it quite a few times at the point of this episode being posted. But David, quite frankly, I believe, has changed the way audiobooks are to be written and
that's
read,
what I hear,
because it's part audiobook and it's part podcast, because after each chapter or in between scenes, so to speak, him and his ghostwriter, who's basically reading the book for him, also interviews him. It's just freaking amazing. Now I was first introduced to David because of Living with a Seal, written by Jesse Itzler, and he briefly talks about that experience in the book. But I'm telling you guys that if you have not read that book already or listened to it, I strongly encourage you to get the audio. It is going to blow your mind. You are going to. I just talked with a lady the other day, last night, as a matter of fact, who's former Navy, and she said she was in tears, laughing, frustrated with herself. I felt all the same emotions, man. Great book, absolutely huge.
I'm looking forward to that one.
It's a ride, man. It is a ride, and you know what? Here's the funny thing about it. I don't want to give it away, but bottom line is this: you're going to want to make yourself uncomfortable while you read that book. Get back with me after listen to that book. Get back with me after you listen to it and tell me I'm not true. I'm not telling the truth. All right. So, what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance, Donnie?
Their beliefs. I think people are moving through life to plateau. And here's what I mean. I think people are trying to get to a spot where they can stop and not go. I mean, I did so much of my sales career where I thought, man, if I can just get to this level, I can stop. I don't have to do any more. If I can just get to these couple of big accounts, I can turn it off. If I just. And here's what I know. Now, here's what I know is there's never turning it off. Because when you plateau, you actually start going downhill. And I believe life's a big ass wheel. And it's all about momentum. And it's all about moving forward. And I think people have this belief if I can just get to X, life's good. So be willing to get punched in the face by life. Be willing to step into your fears and be willing to go for it and then keep moving forward, because there is no plateau. There's only up or there's down. That's it.
Yeah. Wonderful. What does living a life of abundance mean to you?
And I'm going to use the word of Dan Dwyer just because I really like this whole thought process, and it's leaving it better than you found it. And I think for me, as I continue on my journey, is helping other people step into their zone and get to get them to take action on their life. And so living abundance is being the torch, being the light, being the guide on their journey, making them the hero to go for it. And in the words of Zig Ziglar, man, if you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. And I think that's my entire motive in this world is not by inspiring others to go for it, but by helping others take action in their own journey.
Yeah, no truer words have been said, man. Absolutely. So, brother, we're going to have successchampions.podcast.com linked up in the show notes, as well as DonnieBoivin.com linked up in the show notes. You don't have to worry about writing that down, guys. It's all going to be linked up there. But what did we not talk about today, Donnie, that you want to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation today?
That life's too short not to go for it. Whatever go for it means for you, get in the game and have some fun. And you are influenced by everything you feed your mind with. Make sure you're feeding it with good stuff. Make sure you're surrounding yourself by good people. Turn off the chaos. Turn off the news. Turn off the newspapers. Turn off all that crap and start feeding your mind and going for it. If you understand and embrace that you are your influences, then life gets a lot simpler when you start betting on you and you start going for it, because you start feeding yourself with the right stuff. Have fun and go for it.
Absolutely, man. And how else can our guys get more of you?
So name of the podcast is Donnie Success Champions. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, DonnieBoivin.com, like you talked about. SuccessChamps.us is another website we have that talks about the content development company. Instagram, Donnie.Boivin, Twitter, Donnie Boivin, LinkedIn, I'm all over there. Hell, send me an email at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com. I don't have anybody that monitors. It's all me. And I will get back to you. May not be immediately, but I will get back to you. Reach out, say hello, and let's all rise up together. As a good friend of mine says, badasses unite. So let's rise together.
Excellent, man. And you had a gift for the listeners?
Absolutely. So if anybody's interested and you struggle with social content, we took out a small portion of the content package. So for $97, if you're interested, you can reach out. Just send me an email at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com, and we will put together a package of 8 social graphics for you. It's a couple $100 value that we reduce down for a lot of the shows. But we'll walk you through. It'll be your images. We'll put some content over the top of it, make it all for you guys. But, like I said, cost is $97. And you can also go to my website at DonnieBoivin.com, and you can get a couple of things. Of course, I have the Jackass Journal there, which everybody calls that Jackass Journal. there's a Finding Your Strength worksheet and how to figure out if you're playing defenses worksheet for free on the website as well. So check those out. Just go to DonnieBoivin.com. I believe it's /downloads, and you can find all 3 of those free resources.
Excellent, man. We'll have all that linked up in the show notes, brother. Greatly appreciate it. Dig the conversation. Knew I would. I love hanging out with you on social media and just raising hell out there. All right, brother. Take care, man.
Thanks, Wally. Thank you.
All right, guys, like I said, that was a long conversation. All I want you to do today, the only action step that you have, is to be abundant in your actions today. Pay it forward by sharing this conversation and all other conversations that really completely resonate with you with others in your circle. Share Men of Abundance out on your Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is that you're on. Send it in an email. Tell somebody about it. Grab somebody's phone out of their hand. If they don't already have a podcast player, download your favorite one on their phone. And the first thing you do on that app is subscribe them to the Men of Abundance podcast. They will thank you for it. Now, go out and live your life of abundance. And guys, make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.